Welcome to F1 on the Rocks. Sit back and pour up your favorite drink. Hey, we're not the ones behind the wheel.
Yo, what up, everybody? Welcome back. F1 on the Rocks, Italian GP review a la Monza. Here with my main man, the co-host, the one and only Mr. Brian Dower. And we're pumped. We're pumped to be back with you guys. This week, we're going to take a run of the Italian GP at Monza, chock full of some grid shuffles, some regulation drama, a sort of, oh, not that again, in a race ending that was entirely serendipitous. And then heading into a three-week break, we're going to speculate a bit more on the 2023 grid, check in on grid rivals, and also talk a bit about what we have planned for the next couple weeks in this little bit of downtime. Brian, tell me what you've been up to in the last week or so since we recorded last.
Yeah, man, I've had a lot going on. It's nice to have this triple header, the back-to-back-to-back races is a lot of fun. I almost said, I don't know if you remember the back-to-back-to-back AAU national championships from like Sports Center when we were kids, that commercial. Yeah. Sorry, I got off the rails early in this episode, but
no,
it
it's
just
totally
hit me.
Okay. It's those things that trigger in your brain that you're like, I can't. I've been brainwashed into knowing this, you know?
Right. 877 cash now. Anyway,
we are farmers. Yeah, we're totally breaking so many copyright laws now. Yeah. Anyways, how are you doing?
Anyways, I'm good, man. It's been a busy little stretch for me. We had Penelope's birthday. She turned 7 on Sunday. So that was good. She's riding a 2-wheeler now, which I think I mentioned on the last episode. Woo! So she got herself a new bike helmet. So we've been cruising all over Palm City, raising hell. And so that's been cool. That's been fun. We've been having a good time with that. It's my anniversary today.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you.
Yeah, you
can't
Bridget,
forget
fantastic.
that one.
No.
Bridget, happy anniversary.
Yeah.
I'm
you
spending
wouldn't
it
be here
recording
without
a podcast.
Her. You wouldn't be here without her. That's right.
Exactly. That's the truth. And so it's been good. We went to a birthday party on Sunday, on Bridget's birthday, but it was for another friend of hers. And long story short, it's like your typical kid's birthday party. Like a lot of people you don't know, people swimming. I'm having a couple beers and somebody calls me over. Hey, you got to meet Brent. He's a Formula One fan. Like, fuck yeah. So it went from like awkwardly standing at a kid's birthday party to crushing Miller Lights, hanging out with Brent, talking about F1 and Sebring and all this other good shit. So shout out to Brent. I turned him onto the pod too. So hopefully we gain a listener from it.
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
This is good stuff. What have you been up to?
Dude, it's crazy. I too attended a child's birthday party this weekend. A friend, his son Miles was turning 1, and what a fun and exciting time to be alive when the bathroom door in his house was like literally a revolving door of toddlers in and out who are all simultaneously trying to potty train. Yeah, pretty unique and interesting experience nonetheless. But it was good. We got out. We did some fun things. We also relaxed a little bit. Rio's getting to this age now, which it's so fun that she'll wake up on a weekend because she kind of like knows what a weekend is now, and then be like, she'll make like dinosaur noises, and it's because she wants to go sit on the sofa and watch this dinosaur movie like from beginning to end, first thing on the weekend. And I'm like, I'm all about this because now I can like pop open my laptop, watch some qualies. Like we can do this together, kid. This is exciting. So. It's been good. It's starting to cool down out here, which is nice too. So being outside isn't as much of a task, but it's been a nice go of it the last week. And obviously it's always a pleasure getting on here with you and working through this stuff and chatting through kind of what's happened. I've also found some new F1 aficionados at my new gig. So there's an F1 Slack channel. And so we're piping back and forth. And so there's a shout out to Anita, who I think is hopefully listening or will be listening to this one as a new F1 fan, and some of the other folks here at FIG that are F1 fans, which is really cool. So
hell yeah, that's awesome. And I just noticed, did you have that up last week? That Suzuka poster? That thing's fucking sweet.
I did, yeah. I did. I did a little. I'm trying to get my office all tricked out, so I've got the Suzuka poster here, yeah. And then you can't see it, but on top of my desktop, I've got a nice little old school Ferrari vehicle that I'm working through this one step.
Nice, man. Yeah, I love that.
Out.
That is one of my favorite tracks, and I think we're there in like 2 races.
Yeah. So, and you knew about this, but the podcast audience didn't know. I sent out this big invite because I was trying to get like all of my closest F1 fans to come out here so we could do this big Suzuka like blow up blast of
That's
a race on a big screen in the backyard, and everybody bailed except for Josh and Delia. So they're going to come out. We're going to have a party without all of you losers who didn't want to come. Just kidding. I love you guys. So, on that note, about partying, what are you drinking on today? What's on your rocks for F1 on the rocks?
I've got a new one.
Oh, okay. What you got?
Rum and ginger. It is extremely refreshing.
I always expect for you to have some like crazy dive bar name to your cocktail, and then you just have like liquor name and mixer, and I'm like, all right, Here we go. Yeah,
just right to the point.
So I got a recommendation. I got a recommendation from a coworker to pick up this Bardstown Bourbon Company Fusion Series. And I got it from the barreltap.com, and they delivered it straight to my house, which was really nice because I just hate having to go like find, things at liquor stores these days. I guess call me lazy if you want, but this thing's awesome, man. On a rock and super tasty. The water, the ice water opens up notes of flavors that you would have never known about before. But
listen to you.
There you go. on the rock tonight. F1 on the rock for me.
On the rock. So our t-shirt winner, we picked a new winner.
Yeah, screw Denny. Get out of here, Denny.
Yeah, Denny was unresponsive. So I don't know what kind of ship he's running over there, but I gave him ample time, tweeted him multiple times, and he didn't answer. So if anyone's just like listening for the first time, we've got this goat t-shirt that has all the goats on it, and we've got a new winner. H&R Block didn't get back to us, and our new winner seems awesome. So I put everybody you did, the follow, the retweet, whatever, put them in a hat, pulled them out. So it's Melissa Tippy is the next winner and the winner, and her Twitter profile is awesome. So it says loves : baking, books, cooking, camping, concerts, racing, fashion, fun, travel, sports. I'm like, fuck, like I'm like 9 out of 10 with
checking boxes over here. Yeah,
right.
I got you.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Melissa.
So she's in. She's the winner. So I just sent her a message last night while we were prepping for the pod. So we'll get that sent to her, and hopefully get a cool picture or something, and we'll do some more of that stuff too, because I think that shirt was pretty cool, and people were into it.
Yeah, that's fantastic, man. Good on you, and thank you for heading up the t-shirt giveaway contest. I'll be in charge of the next one, and we'll get something fun and funky going. We have now reached this fun time of each podcast episode. Everybody knows that after we came back from summer break, we kicked into the F1 on the rocks, too long, didn't read, one breath race review. Man, it's a tongue twister, and it shouldn't be. The one breath race review. So for if you're just joining us or you've missed this previously, what happens is Brian is going to take one long deep breath, and he's going to give you the entire race review in that one breath. And his time to beat, because he's done this previously, is 22.3 seconds. I caught him practicing today, so if he botches this one, it's because the pressure got to him. No pressure. So the timer's ready. On your mark, take a deep breath, get set, and go.
We're in Monza with Tifosi out in force and Leclerc starting on pole. Norris tests the McLaren's anti-stall, losing 4 places at the start, while Leclerc gets away clean, defending hard against Russell into turn 1. The Red Bull has the pace, forcing Leclerc to go to an early stop under the VSC. Sainz and Hamilton charge through the field, gaining 14 places each. Ricciardo's engine pops like Albon's appendix, causing a late safety car, and we end under yellow with Verstappen winning from Leclerc and Russell, with Nick de Vries finishing P9 in Williams and avoiding a late penalty and picking up driver of the day.
Oh my goodness. Fam, F1 fam. First of all, Albon's appendix. That's hardcore, dude. You took it straight to the gut with that shot, man. I'll give it to you. 23.36 seconds. You didn't beat it, but you were close. I know you were running out of air there at the end.
I ran out. If I had better lung capacity.
Yeah. That was a great race review, though. Thank you for that. If you couldn't understand what he was saying, keep listening. If you want to hear us talk more about what he was saying, keep listening. Yeah, this is cool. Love it. Well, thanks for that. Good stuff,
Cheers.
man. Yeah, it was a good race. Very fun race. In general, I think the biggest takeaway for me was just this dichotomy of F1 is everything that we already knew it was, literally in the sense that we finished the race under a safety car. And everything that we hoped it was, literally, and that a reserve driver stepped into a vehicle and totally kicked ass,
Hell yeah.
like that just made my absolute, like, I couldn't care less when they were panning to everyone else. I was like, guys, I don't care. Please go back to Nick's in-car cam. Please go back to Nick's in-car cam. Please stop this, and I guess I could have just switched over with F1 TV, but I digress. Yeah. Talk to me about your kind of overall feeling about the whole race, as a whole. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, De Vries, like you mentioned, was awesome. And we'll go into that in a little more specificity, but that was incredible. I thought it was great just on Friday practice and Saturday morning, FP3, and then you see the pace Ferrari had in quali. It's like, wait a second, Red Bull was supposed to run away and win by 40 seconds here. And it didn't look that way, which was just super interesting to me because especially the track and the straight line speed and yada, yada, yada. So that was pretty intriguing. Obviously you mentioned how it finished, and we'll talk about that a little bit too. But a lot of people said it was a boring race. I thought it was still good. I mean, there was a lot going on. There was a lot to watch. The DRS trains, were kind of there a little bit. But Monza's Monza. I really enjoy it. Some people aren't huge fans of the track, but it's one I really like. It's got the history and all that good stuff. So I was pumped. I thought it was a good weekend.
Yeah. So I've coined it Nick De Vries, the People's Champ. We'll throw down some old wrestling names there, the People's Champ. But interesting if people missed some of the the pre-race stuff, which I try to always watch some of the practice, or at least the practice reviews. He started the weekend in an Aston Martin. Actually doing some test driving for Aston Martin, and you think about the difference between driving a Mercedes-Benz and a Honda Accord, and it's like, that's kind of what he was doing in that instance. Is like Aston doesn't have a lot more money than Williams, but I feel like there was at least some difference. So you look at everything that happened after that through the light of he was driving a different car and then suddenly had to get into a different car for, a qualifying session, and off to the races he went, someone called out that he went out through a corner, through the gravel, through the grass. And I saw that and I was like, oh boy, and then I feel like there must've been like this knee jerk, like snap or something that happened for him where he was like, okay, like that was my one, after that, right. I don't get another one of those. Cause if I do, I'm either out of qualifying or out of the race kind of thing, So he wins driver of the day, obviously. And I was doing some research while I was watching him race. F2 champ in 2019, right? It took him a year. This was the year before Schumacher snagged his 2020 F2 title. So, he's in the company of Hamilton and F2 champ, Gasly and F2 champ, Leclerc, Russell, Piastri, and now, as of just this weekend, Drugovich. So he's in the company of some fantastic drivers. He just hasn't yet hit a window in which a seat has opened at which people know what he's capable of, where he can slide into a seat. And so I think this opens doors for him. In some instances, it really just depends on what teams are kind of teeing up. So thanks to Nick, Monza 2022, this race was the first time in history that two Dutch F1 drivers finished in a race in points position. And that's a pretty cool stat to be a part of as a Dutchman.
Yeah, that's very cool. I didn't know that. And De Vries was Formula E champion too, which is, I guess, I don't know a ton about Formula E. All the tracks are like weird street tracks, so it always looks like it kind of sucks. But it's just really interesting to see someone like that hop in and perform. Like, boom, there you go. And I saw an interview, or it was an article or something I was reading when I don't know if you remember, it was in Q2, because he made Q2, and he was on his last lap in Q2, and he locked the rear brakes going into turn one, which is obviously super fucking weird. And he moved the brake bias back instead of front before that, because he was used to the Aston steering wheel or the Mercedes steering wheel or whatever. So it's just like a unfamiliar mistake. But I mean, he almost made it into Q3 if that mistake hadn't happened.
The props go to him though, because if you go back and listen to some of the driver cam footage, he's asking questions while he's racing. Like he's doing the equivalent of what every like young employee should do in a new gig, which is like, I don't know what's happening here. What should I be doing? And they're like, do this and do this. And he's like, great, got it. Like, I don't know if I should be doing this. And like, you should be, keep doing it. Great, got it. Like,
Right.
and that I think that played a part in, for me, one of the things that I really loved seeing was his success, because we're used to these other older senior drivers who are bitching at their crew or who are talking to their crew chief and saying this, that, or the other, because they just, they're used to it's a rinse repeat for them. But for Nick, everything was so new and he stepped up. That's it. I'm off my Nick pulpit. But you had some other interesting details. Was it related to Nick?
Yeah, so there's a Twitter account, F1 Data Analysis, at F1 Data Analysis on Twitter,
this is cool. Yeah,
it's fucking sweet. Like this guy, he's like a student or something. He's an Italian student from what I can tell, and he puts out some really cool data, candlestick charts, graphs, this, that, and the other, like all sorts of stuff. Like some of it you need like a statistics degree to understand, but that's my speed. I dig that. So I pulled two, and we'll put these in the show notes. I pulled two links from his post, and one of them was just a bar graph of the minimum speeds for every team, the quickest driver of each team. And most of the cars were at 74 to 69 kph minimum speed throughout the lap during quali, and the Williams was 62. So they got down to 62 kph, essentially 10 kph slower than all of the other cars. So we know the thing's got no downforce. We know they stripped the downforce off of it. So even more impressive for De Vries. And then the other one that I linked here is the percentage of time at full throttle. And again, Williams is way off of the average. So they've got no grip on corner exit. And basically, it's showing that this car, although okay in a straight line, not as fast as everyone thought in a straight line, really wasn't that great of a car this weekend. And, De Vries put it in P9.
Yeah.
Super impressive.
Remarkable when you look at everything. I named this episode My Shoulders Are Dead, and it's because Nick pulled in after the race and said over the radio, my shoulders are dead. And it's like he left everything out, and there's a video that's circulating the internet right now. I'll find it and make sure it gets added to the blog post for today's episode. But he couldn't get out of the car. He needed the team's assistance to climb his way out of the car, because he literally gave everything he had. And that's it for the Nick De Vries section. What an awesome dude to step in and do what he did. But hopefully there's more to come for him, and this isn't a one-stop shop.
Yeah, agreed. And check out, before we move on, check out our listeners, check out F1 Data Analysis on Twitter. It's super cool. And it's like $5 a month or something to get the premium content or whatever. But it's super cool. And we hope to, bring some more stuff from those folks on future pods.
Yep, we'll get that account actually linked into the podcast description so everybody can get quick access to it. Leclerc in the lead, looking strong. You made mention of having, a strong qualifying session, which is interesting. The pressers previously, they were, we're going to be real weak in Monza, and we're, Red Bull's going to smoke us. And then they show up in qualifying, and I had money. I actually placed some bets, which I'll run through at the end for you on this race. I hacked my way back into my DraftKings account, which had $12 in it. But I had money on Sainz, and so when Sainz popped up at the end of Q2, I was like, oh yeah, this is looking good for my money. But no, not so much. Leclerc smoked him in Q3, which was pretty cool. So what's your overall take on Leclerc? Did he drop the ball at all here, or was this like better Leclerc form than the last race?
Yeah, I mean, I think Leclerc did everything he could. They've got good pace in quali, but that Red Bull during the race was just so smooth on the tires. I think Verstappen went like 25 or 26 laps on the soft tires at the beginning. I mean, the race pace in that Red Bull is just sick. So, kind of moving into the strategy side of it, obviously Leclerc tried for the two-stop. So he stopped early for the Seb's virtual safety car. Seb's car took a crap. So VSC came out, Leclerc went in for the cheap stop, like 16, 17 laps in, something like that. And pretty much at that point committing to a two stop. Like it would have been crazy to try to push the mediums 50 laps or whatever it was. But kind of when that happened, it was like, all right, he's not catching up to Verstappen once he came back out. He's not closing the gap on fresher tires. Verstappen's still pumping in fast laps on his old softs. So that was a little tough. And it's interesting, the strategy at Monza in general is like pretty much never in a normal race a two-stop is going to work because they're going at such fast speed down that start-finish straight. And it's so long that you just lose so much time in a pit stop compared to the speed they're going on the track. So when he was trying for a two-stop, it's like, all right, they're a little desperate here. But I mean, at least Ferrari didn't fuck up, right? They had a clean weekend. There were no blunders. There were no strategy mistakes. Like, I don't blame them for trying a two-stop. When you know your race pace isn't as good as Verstappen's, you got to try to do something.
Yep.
But that's kind of how I saw it. What are your opinions on it?
Yeah, I mean, I think aside from the ending where things kind of shifted that were more disadvantageous to Ferrari strategy decisions, it made sense for them to kind of go with the two-stop strategy, as you're saying. I mean, they were doing everything that they could to try and keep up with the fact that the RB was running the speed and the pace that it was. So, I've butchered articulating this stat previously, so I'm going to take a swing at it again. Max now has as many wins from a Leclerc pole position this season as Leclerc has wins in his entire career, which is
Nailed it.
It's a pretty interesting stat when you think about it. So to break that down and hopefully not confuse people more, every time Leclerc starts on pole that Max wins, Max has that number of wins and Leclerc has that number of wins to his career. So that's pretty remarkable to kind of look at. And it's not a dig at Leclerc. It's just another, one up Max stat. But
yeah, the insane thing, Max is 24 years old. I mean, if he doesn't lose interest in Formula One, he's going to shatter every record Hamilton and Schumacher have set.
However, if he doesn't lose interest and or get booted from the best performing, vehicle that exists right now, and also someone else doesn't come along who can outperform him, which I think is a key thing to throw in there, right?
Yeah.
No one thought Hamilton was going to be fighting Verstappen, this soon. They thought he was going to keep crushing it. So here we are now with Max. Let's see what happens in a few years. Speaking of veterans in the industry, Aston Martin, seeing Seb go out with, was that an engine failure or what occurred? Do you know that threw him down?
I don't remember. I think it was, or maybe lost pressure or something in the hydraulics, something like that. I don't remember exactly.
Yeah, but either way, both Aston Martins had DNFs, which kind of sucks because they're trying to just sit in mid-pack and collect a few points to hang in there. But man, with these DNFs, it's like, what are you guys doing? Are you just like planning on coming out in 23 with a different car or something? I don't know. I don't know what's happening right now to both of them. But
yeah. If I were to guess, and I'm obviously a Seb fan. I don't like Stroll. I don't like Lawrence Stroll. I could see Aston in 23 being like the most improved team because they've hired all of these badass engineers and aerodynamicists and everything from all these other teams that have had, they call it garden leave, I guess, in the UK. Like, hey, like a non-compete, essentially, like, hey, you're done working for Mercedes today, but you can't start working for us for 12 months or whatever. Yeah. And I think those people are finally starting to get into the Aston Martin. So I don't know. I could see them being better in 23. I hope they are. I mean, it's a big brand. They're spending a ton of money, even though they're not my favorite people. I think it's good for Formula One if they do well.
Yeah. Well, I think between them and AlphaTauri, we're looking at, I think what could potentially be a pretty good battle in 23. AlphaTauri looked pretty strong this weekend. Gasly looked really good, went hards early and forced a pit strategy response from everyone in the DRS train behind him. So I like seeing when they are making mid-pack strategy decisions that kind of dictate the way that the cars behind them have to kind of function and handle stuff. So that was pretty interesting. Yuki only ended up in that penalty position because of the team call. So if you were watching, I think it was P3, a yellow flag came out, and the team came on the radio and said, yellow flag, sector 3 or whatever it was. I don't even know. Keep going though. And he was like, okay. And he drove through it. And because he drove through it, he got the 5-point reprimand, which threw him further down in the penalty. So, you were talking about Ferrari didn't have any strategy issues this weekend. No, they didn't. But AlphaTauri, I think, did. I mean, somebody probably wasn't keeping track of that exact stat at that time. But still, I mean, come on, the yellow flag is there for a reason. Like, let's just not go blowing through them,
Especially in practice.
Yeah.
Who cares? That's crazy.
Yeah. Yep. Within the context of Norris. So Lando, I think performed basically every way that he possibly could in that particular situation. He did really good climbing up within qualifying and not having, to drift down after all the other penalties from the other drivers. How did you feel about Norris's race from top to bottom?
Aside from the start, it was great. I mean, he lost 4-5 positions at the start, and I don't remember what he said in an interview after the race. It was weird. He was like, we had a problem with the wheel, or it was odd. It's like, oh, I don't know. I mean, who the fuck am I to say? But it seemed like he just bottled it, and these guys in their egos. Lando used to be a favorite of mine, and he's trending in the wrong direction. I'm going to go off on a little fucking tangent here.
Well, I was going to say, before you do you think that this is him kind of doing that thing where he's like blaming everything except for himself? Like, it looked pretty clear to me that he just dropped the shift and missed it, right? Like, is that pretty much what it appeared to be? He was trying to time the light and missed it?
The anti-stall stopped the car from completely fucking stalling out. Like, and again, I've never driven a race car of any kind.
Hey, we're non-professional professionals. It's okay.
Yeah, but he just has this attitude now. I don't know if you listen to him on Beyond the Grid, the Tom Clarkson Formula One podcast. He had Lando on, and it's rare they have like a current Formula One driver on. So I listened to it. It was a good interview. It was great, whatever. But he was talking about Lando's first podium in Austria in 2020. It was the first race back from COVID in 2020. And I don't know if you remember, but Hamilton got a 5-second penalty. There's like a lap left, and Lando needs to make up like a second and a half at a lap.
I do.
And you remember. So his engineer's telling him like hold overtake for 5 seconds out of turn 3, and like all of this stuff. And it was awesome, the coolest fucking thing ever. And so they're talking about it on the podcast, and Tom Clarkson's like, could you have done it, without him? And Lando's like, absolutely. He's like, I'm the one driving the car. Like, it's like, fuck. Like, fuck you, man. And then he kind of like went back on it a little bit. He's like, yeah, he has he helps me, but like, I don't know, like you have the opportunity to like share in it and pump people up. And he just seems like he's changing a little bit. And, he's 22 years old or whatever. So I'm sure he's got a lot of changing to do, but I don't know if it's like taking that number one driver role at McLaren. Now he's got to be like the fucking asshole to everybody, but I don't know. Maybe I'm out of line there, but
I don't know. I just don't know if it's going to get him anywhere. I mean, if you look at the outpouring of love that Ricciardo is still getting, even as what failures you might call that he's had these years and this year, and even with the direction he's headed, I don't think that the asshole, pretentious driver is the way to the hearts of A, your team, and B, the people who are cheering you on. So
yeah,
Ricciardo had some oil pressure issues, which unfortunately were, the force of the safety car situation at the end, which we'll get into here in a few. But I just don't know if I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, Ricciardo has got this. Ricciardo has got this. Ricciardo has got this. And they go, oh, what is that? Ricciardo's car is retiring. And I'm like, oh, like, you just gotta feel so really bad for him, man. Just so bad for him to put in the performance he was doing. He was going to be in the points. It was just going to be like a glimmer of hope. And no, unfortunately, the car failed him. So
it was really weird too. Like that onboard, I've never heard like it just turn off, like complete, like didn't stutter, it was just
click. Yep,
totally silent, done. It was crazy.
Yeah.
That was wild.
Makes you wonder if like a tube just like shifted and like oil stopped going in the engine and it just seized and shut off. Like,
Yeah,
that's it. Yeah.
that was nuts.
Side note for everyone, unlike F1 on the Rocks, McLaren has picked up a new sponsor, one I'm quite jealous of. Jack Daniels. They've signed a multi-year sponsorship deal with Jack Daniels.
Nice.
So Zach Brown, if you hear this, send us some Jack Daniels, please.
Yeah, some Tennessee whiskey.
Tennessee whiskey. So Max got the victory under the safety car by way of Ricardo. I think with all that happened at the end, I think it was 6 or 7 laps of safety car. I can say honestly that this wasn't the same situation as Abu Dhabi. I think with what occurred, people wanted some answers as to why what was going on, but they wanted those answers like right then in that moment. And I don't think there's a way to impart that to everyone live in the race. I think it has to kind of come after the race ends, where FIA says, well, this was going on and this was going on, and we had to make sure that, that the safety was clear, and we also have to let all those cars unlap. And then even after we let all those cars unlap, we have to make sure that, that the track is kind of opened back up and ready to actually race on. And it wasn't. There wasn't enough time to do what they needed to do based on where Ricardo's car broke down. Do you feel like this was the same as Abu Dhabi?
No, it was different. I agree with you on that. And it was crazy because Ricardo's car was stuck in gear, and these F1 cars, they all have like that button right near the cockpit, and you see it sometimes like when they're looking in the garage or whatever, and it's like this silver button that just you press it and pops it in neutral. They can push it back. Didn't work for whatever reason. So what I thought was crazy with the whole situation is they brought out the tractor. Tractor. Thank you.
Car lifter.
Yeah. And hooked it up and started backing up and taking it off while the cars were still coming, which is interesting because of the, Jules Bianchi in Japan and all of that stuff. I haven't really seen that a ton since. So that was kind of interesting, but I know we'll get into a little bit after we finish the race review, but I kind of don't think there's really much they could do. You know what they needed? I've been playing the F1 Manager. They needed just the fucking pause button in F1 Manager. Like, oh shit, everybody stop. Hold on. Let's figure out what's going on. We need a real life pause button.
Let's just pause the world like we pause a video game. Wouldn't that make everything so much easier? Yeah.
Oh man, sure. But shitty situation. I can't really blame them. But yeah, I mean, Max, what's your opinion on Max? Is he just untouchable?
I think this is done. I mean, I say what you want to say. I think the season belongs to Max. I think he's proven why the season belongs to Max. If you just take a quick look at the performance in the last three races, he's won from the 10th position, the 14th position, and the 7th position on the starting grid. So like, one could only wonder, maybe he doesn't win if he starts in pole and something goes wrong, or there's other issues at the start for him, right? Maybe that's when he doesn't win. But at this point, he's kind of showing, that he's in a superior car and that he can race with superior craft. And so we really can't hate on him at this point in time. And so that brings us to gains and losses. Verstappen went up 6 positions. Here's a fun one for you. Both Sainz and Hamilton took 14 positions from their starting grid position. That is some pretty remarkable racing, and I think you've got something later in the episode that kind of keys into that. But Perez went up 7 positions. Alonso, Ricciardo, Stroll, and Vettel DNF'd. Lando down 4, Gasly down 4, and everyone else kind of tumbled a position or 2 throughout the race. So a lot of different movement that we're seeing, especially in light of faster performing cars with grid penalties, which hopefully we don't see too many more of those, but I don't know how we're going to make it to the end of the season without seeing at least a few more. So yeah.
You know what is interesting about Sainz and Hamilton? Like we're watching that race, and it's like, wow, Sainz is like making fucking progress. Like he's getting through people quick, and then I kind of just felt like Hamilton's not really getting it done. And then by the end of the race, it's like, oh, never mind. I don't know how that happened, but it just happened.
I think 3 DNFs in 20 laps will help you a little bit, but yeah, for sure. I think it definitely made nice to see both of them kind of cooking from the bottom up. So
yeah. So let's talk a little bit more now that we're moving off of the race. Let's talk a little bit more about the safety car ending stuff. So I'll give you my opinion first. So my opinion on it is obviously this is what had to be done. This is what the rule says, right? Which I'm fine with. Abu Dhabi, they did not follow the rules.
Correct.
And that's where a lot of this craziness and whatever, and we don't have to get into that too much, but they didn't follow the rules in Abu Dhabi. They followed the rules now. And now kind of the people who were pissed about them not following the rules in Abu Dhabi are like, oh man, this fucking safety car ending really sucks. It's like, well, yeah. So I'm a believer that this has happened 10 times other than this in the history of F1. As far as I understand, the last time was 2020 Bahrain. It ended under a safety car. I don't know. I don't have a problem with it. Having said that, I didn't spend $500 on tickets to Monza and hotel rooms and flights and all of this shit. So if someone's there, they might feel different, or even people watching at home might feel different. But it happens so infrequently, and I'm very much a rules is rules kind of person. So that's my opinion. Could they change it? Sure. Would that be for the better? Maybe. I don't know. Probably. What's your take?
It's so funny, right? Like this whole thing is so funny because you wonder like where Michael Massey was like when all this went down, and like can you imagine what was going through his head in that moment? Like, oh God, like I don't know what's happening next. After what happened in Abu Dhabi, the FIA went to the teams and said, hey, like if you don't want situations like this to occur again, then we do need some sort of revisions to the regulations in the rule book. And hey, teams, guess what? We don't want to tell you what it is. You guys get together and figure out what works amicably for all of you as a team collectively, and we'll put that rule in place. And it's like, great. So you think, great, now after seeing what happened, specifically for Red Bull and Mercedes, they're like, we have to come up with a solution. Well, Andreas Seidel at McLaren has been rumored to have said, listen, we actually got together and we tried to talk about this, and the teams couldn't agree on a solution to this quite obvious problem. Wow. And so as a result of that, here we are, same situation again, no solution as proposed by teams to what some teams consider a problem and others don't. I don't think Williams gives a shit too much about what's happening here as much as teams who have victory and points and constructors championships on the line. So I can understand why maybe they're less inclined to have some sort of opinion on the matter. For me, I feel like if we're in the atmosphere of we have an opportunity to make an improvement, then I think that there's an opportunity for everyone to collectively come together and try to find a way to make that improvement. If it's going to improve the sport in the way that the race finishes, not only for the fans, but also for the teams, then let's at least have a conversation about where that can go. I don't know what that solution is. I'm not going to even try to get into that today, maybe for one of our break episodes here as we go into a 3-week break, but I don't know what the solution is, but I do know that I think there's a way that we don't have to finish under a yellow flag. And I would like to see a race always finish in a race type atmosphere as opposed to a safety type atmosphere. And the takeaway for me is simply this: can we be safe, and can we also race the race? And if we can do both of those things and there's a solution, then let's try and figure out what that is that keeps everybody happy and healthy,
Yeah, I agree. It's interesting. I mean, they did the restart 2021 Baku after Max blew the tire on the start finish straight. They did a restart with for 2 laps, and after that a lot of the drivers were vocal of like, what is this, NASCAR? It's all just for TV, yada, yada, yada. And then Sunday, the drivers were like, we should have found a way to finish. It's like, well, okay. 12 months later, the tune has completely changed, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah. And the way I understand the difference there is that there were, in that instance that you just referred to, there were pieces of a vehicle on the track, which actually created a further safety problem, right? In this instance, Ricardo pulled over. There was no oil. There were no issues that could create another problem if we started racing again. And so that's why it's like, well, why didn't we just start racing again?
Right.
A whole nother a whole nother world of why can't FIA just get everything right all the time? I mean, come on, guys. Like, aren't they just geniuses and all knowing, and they just know what to do to solve these problems? I don't know, but we'll see. You put a note in here for us to talk about grid penalties.
Yeah, I did, because this is something where, and like when we're at these tracks like Monza and Baku and all these ones that have like super long straights, really easy to overtake, you see everybody taking their penalties, right? And like some of them have like 20 place grid penalties and all this crazy shit. And it's like, what's the point of this? Like, I thought the restrictions on the ICE and all these other units, the MGUK, MGUH, is number one, to be cost effective for the teams. Number two, for F1 to be more green with, you know, their initiatives and everything. So like, okay, we'll put into place these grid penalties, and they've had grid penalties forever. But they're ratcheting down how many engines you can take and all this sort of thing. And it's like, if the teams just gamify a solution to it, what's it really doing? Like, the teams do not give a rat's ass that they're going to have to drop 5 places to take a new ICE, because that new engine is going to be super fast. They're going to be on a track they can overtake like crazy. Like the top teams, it's not a penalty at all. I mean, you just listed out where Max has won from recently, 10th, you know, 7th, whatever. I mean, it just seems irrelevant. Like I think there needs to be some harsher penalty. Like if F1's goal is really to make it cost effective for the teams, and you've got to give them a penalty that is actually a penalty. And again, I don't know what that is. I've heard some people throw around some interesting stuff. Like, all right, if you take a new ICE, you've got to wait for 10 seconds at your first pit stop. And if you also take the MGUK, it's another 5 seconds and whatever it is. So you still qualify and you start where you start. And maybe that's a little easier to understand. Like I'm thinking about the casual F1 viewer, you know, Leclerc qualifies on pole and starts 20th. And they're like, what the fuck is going on? Like, I watched this yesterday and this guy was in first.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It just seems like grid penalties are irrelevant.
It's funny that you say like a new F1 viewer, but like Sylvester Stallone is in the Red Bull pit talking to Horner and Perez, and he goes, I don't understand why they give you the penalty or whatever. And Perez is like, yeah, we don't understand it either. It's basically what he said. And I was like, even a guy that's sitting in the pit has no idea what's going on. And obviously, you know, Hollywood A-lister, however you want to call it. What is the point? I don't know. Didn't we recap in a previous episode how they're actually diluting those penalties though? So like instead of them compounding, they're only going to get 5. So it's like maybe they know that the car performance is so good that they could overtake if they want to anyways. And they're like, why make this more difficult and make them pass through the field more? But I haven't heard those other takes on a solution to this until you just brought it up, and I'm like all about it. Like make them sit there in the pit for 10, and then after the 10, while they're all nervous about the 10, then make them make the pit stop, right? So that you have to serve the 10 before they touch the car, and then you've got all the dynamics of like what somebody can screw up in the 5 seconds after the 10 seconds. But yeah, I don't know. It's definitely seemed as if for the well-performing teams that the grid penalties aren't really having an effect on them. And so we'll see what the new 23 regulations bring with regards to, you know, how those penalties are no longer compounding and how they're served. So, yeah. Well, with fast people, you get people who get angry with repeat winners. So for both Verstappen this year and Hamilton last year, obviously, when they win, they have the attention of the audience, whether it be positive or negative. What do you think about the way people are reacting when Max wins in countries where he's not the hometown hero?
Yeah, which seems rare these days. Those Dutch are everywhere. Yeah. But you know, last week at Monza, I think was more the situation than Max specifically. But we did see when it was Hamilton versus Verstappen, you know, after the big crash at Silverstone and it got contentious and the fans, I loved it. Like the booing, I've got no problem with it. It's very interesting how much of a cultural thing that is. Like us Americans, it just seems so normal. Like you go to football games or baseball games or hockey games, or anytime somebody touches the puck, that guy,
it's
you're
like
booing
what
him.
happens?
Like, yeah, it's crazy. In the UK, it's like they're so, I cannot believe this they were booing that young man. He tried so hard out there. They should have more respect. It's like, what the fuck? Like, it's crazy. It is one of the most culturally split things that I've experienced thus far in like my F1 life. I've got no problem with it. Like, obviously, if somebody gets hurt, you don't want them to be booed or whatever it is. But like, hey, your rival driver wins and gets out of his car and you want to boo him? Fuck yeah, boo him. I got no problem with that.
In the words of my wise mother, sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me. And the same goes for something. Somebody's got to say some shit to you. It's like, whatever, man. If I've really invigorated and angered you that much, then say what you got to say, and then I'll go and win the next race. Like whatever.
These guys are professionals.
Yeah. So with racers racing and people winning, we have a drivers championship, which actually isn't as contentious in the first position as we thought. What's contentious is the second position. Leclerc rocking 219 points, Perez rocking 210 points, only 9 behind, and George Russell in the Mercedes rocking only 7 points behind Perez with 203. I mean, talk about as close as it's going to get, going into these last few races of the season. This is the excitement here. Like, let's let Max celebrate his victory tour and let's start focusing on whether Russell can pull off this 4-2 jump and really embarrass Ferrari. That would be pretty cool for a lot of reasons. One being Russell's the number 2 driver, but also two, he would really be showing what can be done with a car that people thought would surely be inferior all year long. Pretty neat.
It is pretty neat. I saw somebody post it on Twitter and they just like blacked out. They posted like the top 10 drivers or whatever and just blacked out Verstappen. And they're like, this championship's incredible. And it's like, oh, imagine how awesome that would be.
Yeah.
And the constructors too. I mean, obviously Red Bull's run away with number 1 in the constructors, but Ferrari's got 406. Mercedes got 371. They're 35 points behind with 5-6 races left. Like they could make a jump there, and that's where obviously huge money for those places in the top 10 there. So
yeah, I'm certain that Mercedes would prefer not to have to slide down another spot in standings. It would be preferred to have to keep up with things as they need to. So sure. Quick random thing. I don't know if it matters to any of our audience members, but the F1 esports championships are going on there. It's a thing that's happening between now and the next race. So they're kind of fitting this in. It is an F1 endorsed event. It begins September 14th through 16th. So we'll get the link up in the blog post for this, but if you like F1 2022, the race game, this could be pretty interesting to see how people, cockpit armchair racers are doing their thing. And if it's any entertainment at all to you, it'd be pretty cool. Which brings us to driver market updates. We'll make these quick. There's not too much left for you all today, but what we are seeing is murmurs of Nick DeVries finding some sort of open seat with the opening team, with the teams that have open seats. Like I mentioned before, this is a hit or miss. I feel like this is really a coin toss. It's a 50-50 for me. He's either going to find someone who's willing to entertain a conversation with him to pay him less than they were going to pay someone else and take a shot with him, or he's not, and he's going to stay a reserve driver for pretty much the rest of his career. I just don't see him getting into a seat if he doesn't get one right now. Like, if he doesn't get one within the next 4 weeks, I don't think he's getting a seat.
I 100% agree with that, but I think his chances of getting one in the next 4 weeks are really high.
Exponentially higher than they were a week ago, for sure. Yeah.
The world is a what have you done for me lately world. And for this guy to just go out there and prove it, boom, here I am, here's what I can do. Fuck. If he's not driving at least a Williams next year, it would be a miss, I think.
It's trending in his direction. For podcast listeners, Latifi brings money to the Williams team. That's why right now he's not going anywhere this season. They're not going to let him go early and put Nick DeVries in next week. Don't think that's happening. Like, Latifi's going to finish his contract. He's going to finish giving them what they needed to finish this season. And then Williams will go into some sort of contract negotiations in the summertime. So we'll let that be what it is for now. The Alpine seat, what do you think, Brian? I mean, what are we going to see here?
It sounds like Colton Herta is not getting his super license.
Yeah.
Which means Gasly is not going to be released from AlphaTauri to go to Alpine,
So
which
it's
might
back to drawing board. Yeah.
back to the drawing board, which might mean back to Daniel Ricciardo, or after this weekend, I'd be calling Nick DeVries.
Yeah. I mean,
Maybe they're
weird.
talking to Mick Schumacher. I don't know.
Yeah, it could be fun. Like if you're Nick DeVries, right, and you have one shot at getting into a seat, and Alpine comes to you, you take the Alpine seat immediately because of their performance over Williams. Like that's just a no-brainer. Like pay me what you're going to pay me. If you're going to put me in a faster car and I get a better shot at winning, and that makes my long-term value go up, like yes, I'll drive for you, Alpine. Whatever. I'll deal with your contractual nonsense that you guys don't have lawyers for, but whatever. I don't know. I with Alpine having that open seat and the Colton Herta thing, the situation changing. It's very interesting now because I almost wonder if we won't hear any news about that seat until the end of the year. Like they're just going to let this linger and see if a driver makes a move that shuffles things for them. And again, my take is that Alpine's already screwed things up so badly that it's actually in their best interest to not make the next move, but we'll see.
Yeah. I'm very curious about that. I mean, I understand Alpine's not a top 3 team, but they're the 4th best team this year. They're a works team. And they've got an empty seat. Like they've got to have people crawling all over them to get it. I heard Jack Doohan, who I think is an F2, is in talks, which would be crazy. But anyway, the latest news from Haas, which I know is next on our list, is Nico Hülkenberg. And I think that would be crazy. I like Hülkenberg, but what are you doing bringing a 35-year-old dude back to the grid in a Haas?
Wait, I thought I saw Giovinazzi. Was it Hülkenberg or Giovinazzi?
Giovinazzi's in the running as well, but they said there's been a lot of talks with Hülkenberg. Even bringing back Giovinazzi, like I get it, the Ferrari connection, that whole thing, but like these guys have had their chance. I like Nico.
Let him go. Let him go, man. There's so much young talent. I hope Haas doesn't bring in somebody that's already been here. I hope they bring in somebody new. And then
or hold on to Mick.
Yeah, or hold on to Mick. I guess at that point, that's probably the lesser of two evils for sure.
Yeah.
Drugovich, F2 champ. You think, good job, man. You got your championship. Let's see what news comes of it. And literally within, 48 hours of that news, he's now the new Aston Martin reserve driver. So we've got Daddy Stroll making some moves, locking down, some talent for the future, which is maybe the step in for Alonso when Alonso decides to retire. He's just kind of like covering his bases there a little bit, but right. I don't know. That was a pretty interesting thing to see that quick, right? F2 champ, and I'm going into reserve seat. So
did you see his interview? So sometimes they have these like young drivers do like the F1 post show with Will Buxton or whatever, and they do the whole thing. They were interviewing Ricardo, and it was great. Like the clips are on the internet. Ricardo's like, "Nice glasses. What are those?" And it was just it was a good 30 seconds worth the watch.
Are you saying that I might actually be correct in my assessment that if Ricardo doesn't drive next year, he's going to be a broadcaster for F1 TV? Is that what you're telling me? Because I think that's what's going to happen.
Oh my God! I pray it doesn't happen. It's not happening. I'm speaking it into existence. It's not happening. I think Buxton even said to him, "Oh, if you're a reserve driver for Mercedes, you'll be doing this show with me next year." And you could just see Ricardo's face, like, fuck.
Never. Yeah, like his worst nightmare. Yeah, for sure. Folks, there is no race preview for this week. We've got some time between now and Singapore. It is right, Singapore.
Yeah.
So we won't be doing anything about Singapore because we will be back with another episode to be recapped later. I did want to run through Grid Rivals real quick for the folks that listen and are Grid Rivals aficionados. I won this week. I did it.
You did?
I did. I won this week with 890 points, taking down Michael K 981 by only 5 points. I had 890, he had 885. And here's how I did it. I did it by taking Albon, who actually was Nick DeVries, and making him my talent driver. And I got a total of, how many points was this for Nick DeVries' performance? 280 points.
Damn.
For Nick DeVries' finish. which was pretty cool. So that definitely made the big deal. Brian, you forgot to secure yourself a talent driver, so you didn't get double points on one of your drivers, which was a mistake.
Dude, for like the third week in a row. Fuck.
It tells you to do it though. Like it literally says like do it right after you finish after you finish picking that fifth driver. But yeah, I won't beat the dead horse because remember I was the guy that didn't have any drivers for 2 weeks in a row. Some Grid Rivals updates. The dev team, shout out to Andres Cifuentes, is working hard on new updates to Grid Rivals app, and I've seen them in the beta. I actually downloaded the beta app. Very cool UI, which is going to change Grid Rivals. I think people are going to love it a bit more, and we'll definitely adapt it and adopt it in the future to make sure that people are getting the best out of the app, which is pretty cool.
Nice.
Thanks to Grid Rivals for letting us shout them out and kind of keep them fresh in every episode. What do you got, Brian? Anything else for us as we bring this one to a close?
I don't have much, man. Final thoughts from me are just, it'll be nice to get a little bit of a break here after the triple header. 3 weeks is going to feel like a long fucking time, unfortunately. Yeah. But then we'll be back at Singapore, and then we've got Suzuka, and then I want to say after Suzuka, we're in Austin at Coda. There might be a race in between there too, but I love the race in Austin. Yeah. That track is one of my favorites, and maybe we'll see some different winners, coming down the stretch.
Yep. Yeah, you were correct. That was correct. Singapore, Japan, and then Austin. Well, F1 on the Rocks fam, we love you guys. We're always appreciative for you listening and hanging tight here for the full hour. We talked about a bunch of links. Those will be in the website, f1ontherocks.com, in our new blog post, which is going to get shared out on social media. So by the time you see the blog post, you'll probably be listening to this episode. Quick reminder that we do have a Patreon up on the website, and we are looking for a little bit of support here and there. It helps us kind of keep this bad boy up and running. $5 here and there, it really makes the day, really helps the world go round for Brian and I. And we are actually collecting some listener questions for another episode during this big 3-week break. So fire us some good ones, send us some hot goss goodies, some questionable questions. We will certainly dive into them and do our best on air to not sound like complete and total fools. That makes it the end of this one. Thank you all. We miss you. We love you. Have a good one.
Thanks for listening to F1 on the Rocks. If you enjoyed today's show, subscribe now and watch for updates at f1ontherocks.com and on social at F1 on the Rocks.